You ever get that gut feeling that something's off, but you can't explain why? That was me, standing barefoot on my back patio one Friday morning, sipping coffee while the sun crawled over the tree line. The house was quiet, too quiet for a place that usually echoed with my wife Vanessa's humming or the clink of dishes in the sink. She was still upstairs, asleep, or pretending to be. Lately, I couldn't really tell the difference. I should have felt peace in that moment. Contentment. The yard looked pristine, dew-kissed and freshly cut. Life was, on paper, pretty damn perfect. But something inside me stirred, like the faint hum of a warning bell. A week earlier, my best friend Rick had called me. Rick and I had been boys since middle school, thick as thieves through everything from high school breakups to messy divorces, his, not mine. So when he asked for a favor, there wasn't even a pause. Brandon needs a place to crash, Rick had said. Just for a couple months. He's fresh out of college, job lined up downtown, but rent in this city's insane. Of course I said yes. Brandon was a good kid. Quiet, respectful. He even called me sir, which always made me laugh, considering I'm only 41. He reminded me of the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to date, if I had one. He moved in on a Sunday, clean-cut and eager, dragging in 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. We gave him the guest room. Vanessa helped him settle in, fluffed pillows, showed him where we kept the towels, even made her special chicken enchiladas that night. And for the first few days, everything seemed normal. But then, things started shifting. It was subtle at first. Vanessa started waking up earlier than usual. She never used to be a morning person, but now she was up before me, hair brushed, wearing those form-fitting yoga pants she hadn't touched in months. At breakfast, she asked Brandon about his college life, smiling in a way that felt warmer than usual. Friendly, sure, but maybe a little too friendly. Or maybe I was overthinking it. Still, it lodged in the back of my mind, that look she gave him when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Brandon was always polite, though. Too polite, maybe. He'd say thank you when she passed him the salt. Excuse me when he crossed behind her in the kitchen. You look nice today, when she wore her sundresses, comments that were harmless on the surface. But the way Vanessa flushed when he said them? That wasn't harmless. I'd come home from work some days and find them both on the couch, Vanessa curled at one end, Brandon at the other, a Netflix rom-com playing in the background. She'd laugh at his jokes, brush a loose strand of hair from her face in that slow, deliberate way that always used to be just for me. Still, I told myself it was fine. He was Rick's son, practically family. Vanessa was just being hospitable. One night, though, I walked into the kitchen and saw something that froze me for half a second. Brandon was helping her wash dishes, his forearm brushing hers, both of them laughing too loudly at something I hadn't heard. She didn't even notice me standing there until I cleared my throat. They both startled like guilty kids caught sneaking candy. Hey, honey, Vanessa said too quickly. We were just talking about how bad Brandon is at washing wine glasses. He grinned sheepishly, cheeks flushing. Guilty. I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. My stomach clenched. That night in bed, I turned toward her, brushing a hand down her bare arm. You've been smiling a lot lately, I murmured, trying to sound casual. She hesitated, then said, just trying to stay positive. She didn't lean into my touch like she used to, didn't reach for me in the dark like before. And for the third night that week, we fell asleep without even touching. Brandon kept to himself mostly. Got up early, left for job interviews, came back with takeout, sometimes sat out on the deck with a beer. But every now and then, I'd catch a look in his eyes when Vanessa walked by. A quick glance. Lingering. Just a second too long. I told myself I was imagining things. Until Thursday night. Vanessa had gone upstairs early, claiming a headache. I stayed downstairs watching the game. Around 11, I turned the volume down and went to check on her. But I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, careful ones. I waited in the shadows of the stairwell, heart thudding. Brandon walked out of the guest bathroom, bare chest glistening, towel low around his hips. He didn't see me. He turned and padded down the hall toward his room. The bathroom door behind him still steamed at the edges. I climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately. Past our bedroom, door shut tight. The faintest trace of perfume hung in the air. That was the first night I didn't sleep. I kept hearing the whisper of that towel, the way steam still clung to the hall air, and the way Vanessa's bedroom door had been shut, with no light peeking from beneath. I wanted to believe it was all innocent. But something deep inside me was waking up, something that felt like an old hunter stirring after years of sleep. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to know what it would find. They say doubt is like a splinter, small at first, but once it's under your skin, You can't think about anything else. I tried to ignore it. I tried so damn hard. The morning after I saw Brandon slip from the guest bathroom in nothing but a towel, I told myself it meant nothing. Maybe he just forgot his change of clothes. Maybe he was just showering after a late-night workout or something. Young guy like him, used to dorm living. Casual stuff. Still, I couldn't shake the image of water glistening on his abs. The way that towel had hung low enough to show the deep V of his hips. Vanessa used to trace that V on me, back when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. She hadn't done that in months. And now, the same towel he wore later showed up in our laundry basket. Vanessa had done his laundry for him. That was new. "You're babying him," I said that afternoon when I saw her folding his shirts in the laundry room. She didn't look up. "He's Rick's son." "Yeah, and he's a grown-ass man." "You never folded my shirts." That earned me a small laugh, dry, not amused. "Maybe if you'd left them in the hamper instead of the floor." I didn't push it. What could I say? Please stop being so attentive to the young guy with the swimmer's build and the fuck-me eyes? That would sound paranoid. Desperate, even. But things kept shifting. The distance between Vanessa and me? It grew. And the way she interacted with Brandon? That changed too, but subtly. She'd stand closer to him when they talked. She laughed at his jokes like he was the second coming of George Carlin. Sometimes, when she walked into a room where we were both sitting, her eyes would go to him first. It was all just off. We used to have sex too, 3 times a week. Nothing crazy, but consistent. Touching, kissing, quiet smiles in bed after. Now, we barely even brushed against each other. And I missed her. I missed her so fucking much it hurt. One night, I got in bed behind her and curled my arm around her waist. She stiffened, then sighed. "I'm tired," she mumbled. "I know," I said softly. "Just wanted to feel you." She didn't answer. Just lay still, silent and warm, but miles away. My hand hovered on her hip for a long second, unsure of its welcome. Then I pulled back and rolled to my side. When did she stop needing me? I got up earlier than usual the next morning and caught her already dressed, tight jeans and a low-cut top that hugged her curves. Her hair was down, styled just enough to look accidentally sexy. "You look nice," I said, pouring coffee. She jumped slightly, startled. "Didn't hear you get up. Early meeting?" "No, just errands." She avoided my eyes as she sipped her smoothie. Thought I'd get a head start. That afternoon, I came home early, unannounced. I was tired of second-guessing myself. I parked down the block, walked up quiet, and let myself in through the garage. Upstairs, the house was unusually silent. Then I heard it, a low giggle. Muffled. A door creaked. I crept up the stairs, every hair on my body standing at attention. The hallway smelled faintly of Vanessa's perfume. That vanilla amber scent she wore when she dressed to kill. The guest bathroom door clicked softly shut. I waited, hidden behind the upstairs landing wall. 10 seconds later, Brandon emerged, freshly showered again. This time no towel. Just mesh gym shorts. No shirt. And no fucking underwear. The outline of his dick swung slightly with each step. He turned toward the guest room and, without seeing me, disappeared behind his door. I didn't move. My heart was a hammer against my ribs, and every warning bell in my head was screaming now. When I finally stepped down the hall toward our master bedroom, I noticed something else. Vanessa's bedroom slippers sat just outside our door. Damp footprints led into the bathroom. The mirror was still fogged over. I stepped inside. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Then I checked the medicine cabinet. Her lipstick was gone. The one she only wore when we went out. Bright red. Cherry fire. I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at the floor for a long time. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it. Something was happening. And worst of all, part of me didn't want to confront it. Not yet. Because once you rip the mask off a lie like that, there's no going back. You can't unsee your wife smiling just a little too long at the young man you invited into your home. You can't unhear her laughing behind closed doors, wearing lipstick she doesn't wear for you anymore. That night, we all sat down for dinner. Me, Vanessa, Brandon. She made homemade lasagna. Brandon poured wine. I watched them both too closely, noting the small details. The way she bit her lip when she complimented his cologne. The way his legs shifted under the table just a bit when she leaned across him. The air between them crackled, light, flirtatious, electric. I smiled through it all, pretended I didn't notice. Because sometimes, silence is the sharpest weapon, and I wasn't ready to use it just yet. The night everything unraveled started out so normal, it was almost insulting. Rick was coming over for dinner. Steak night. We'd been doing that for years, grilling out back, beers in hand, talking about old times and new frustrations. Brandon was excited to see his dad, and Vanessa was in full hostess mode, whipping up garlic mashed potatoes and a salad like she was auditioning for a cooking show. She looked good that night. Hair down, lips glossy, not the same red lipstick, but a softer shade. Her sundress hugged her hips just enough to make me ache. It had been weeks since we'd touched in any way that felt like love. I still wanted her. God, I did. And that might have been the worst part. Rick arrived right on time, arms full of beer and steaks the size of small children. He greeted me like always, that wide grin of his splitting his face as we clapped each other on the back. "Look at you, domestic and shit," he said, eyeing my apron. "Man's gotta protect his flannel." I grinned, though the joke landed a little flatter than usual. Vanessa welcomed him with a kiss on the cheek, her hand resting just a second too long on his arm. She poured him a glass of wine before he even asked. We grilled. We drank. We laughed. Brandon came down and joined us, charming as ever. He poured beers, told some story about a failed job interview that had us all cracking up. If you didn't know better, you'd think we were the perfect little modern family. Friends, spouses, offspring. Until later. After dinner, we moved into the living room. I wanted music, some background to the mellow hum of conversation. So I grabbed the remote for the smart TV. Normally, it pulled up Spotify or YouTube. Tonight, it went somewhere else entirely. The screen blinked, then froze on a file directory. Not mine. Not Rick's. Brandon's phone was still synced to our system. One of the folders was called Private. Another, Do Not Open. And below that a folder simply titled V. Vanessa. I felt it before I understood it, like someone had just put their hands around my throat. Rick leaned in from the couch. "What's that?" "Must be Brandon's files. His phone's still synced," I said casually, though my voice trembled on the edges. I don't know what made me click it. Some impulse. Some force I didn't want to admit came from curiosity, or maybe pain looking for proof. I clicked V. It opened. Photos. Videos. The screen filled with thumbnails, some innocent, some not. One photo showed Vanessa sitting on our bed, in a silk robe I hadn't seen in years, smiling at the camera like she was someone else entirely. Younger. Hungrier. The next few images were of Brandon, shirtless, sometimes shirt half off, sometimes entirely nude, standing behind her in the mirror like they were proud of what they'd done. But then the thumbnail that changed everything, a video. I didn't have to play it. I just saw the freeze frame. Vanessa on her knees. Brandon behind her. Her head thrown back in pleasure. Her wedding ring catching the light. I dropped the remote. The room went dead silent. Rick's face paled as he stared at the screen. "That," he said, voice cracking. "Is that what I think it is?" I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. He stood slowly, eyes locked on the screen. His breath became shallow, and then his fists clenched. "My son," he said, each word like a drumbeat of rage, "is screwing your wife." We just stood there for a moment. Two friends, two fathers, two men who'd trusted the wrong people too much, too long. Rick looked like he might throw something. Or someone. I didn't want to believe it. I whispered. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know. But long enough that he's got videos, Rick." Rick took 2 steps toward the TV, then stopped himself. He ran a hand through his hair, then turned to me with this look I'll never forget. Not anger. Not disbelief. Shame. Shame that it was his son. That it was my wife. That we had no idea. We heard the back door open. Brandon and Vanessa laughing. Probably coming in from the patio. Their voices floated in like poison. Rick looked at me, jaw tight. "We can't blow this now." "What?" "We don't say a word. Not yet." "Rick, they're not getting away with this. But we do it our way. Clean. Surgical. We don't scream. We gut M." And just like that, we were no longer best friends. We were co-conspirators. That night, we sat out on the patio, beer in hand, fake smiles plastered across our faces. Vanessa brought out dessert like nothing was wrong. Brandon cracked jokes. The stars blinked overhead, cruel and oblivious. But behind the fake laughter and plastic grins, Rick and I sat with our secret pact. We were going to burn it all down. They just didn't know it yet. There's a strange calm that comes after you've seen everything you need to see. No more guessing. No more second-guessing. The truth just sits with you. Heavy. Unshakable. Cold as stone. Rick and I didn't sleep that night. After Vanessa and Brandon went to bed, Laughing, still pretending nothing had cracked the surface, we sat outside in the dark, passing a bottle of bourbon between us in silence. He didn't talk much. Neither did I. What could we say? I think we both knew that if we spoke it aloud, if we named it, we'd shatter. Instead, we watched the coals die out on the grill, one by one. The hiss of burnt meat still lingered in the air. A reminder that something had once been cooking. Now it was just char. You think it's been going on long? He finally asked, voice low. I nodded slowly. It started slow. Maybe weeks. Maybe longer. He swore under his breath and took a long pull from the bottle. That folder, I muttered, the bile rising in my throat. He had a whole folder for her. Rick stared out into the trees. You know what kills me? He said finally. I raised him better. I thought I did. That boy used to say, yes, sir, to strangers. Wouldn't even lie about breaking a lamp as a kid. He paused, eyes burning with something darker than rage. And now he's fucking my best friend's wife. The words were heavy, final. And yet, even in that moment, there was no yelling, no screaming. Just two men sitting on the edge of ruin, trying not to drown in it. I invited him into my home, I said quietly. I gave him a place to stay, a place to build from. And he betrayed you, Rick finished. She betrayed me too. That one cut deeper. Rick didn't reply. He didn't have to. I could feel the tension in my chest like a weight pressing into bone. Every little touch they'd shared. Every laugh. Every look. It all came rushing back in horrible detail. A montage of lies stitched together with silk sheets and stolen glances. But worse than all of it was how easily they had hidden it. That was the part one couldn't forgive. Not the sex. Not the secrecy. But the ease. She smiled at me while lying to my face. He shook my hand after fucking my wife. And we were supposed to be the fools. The oblivious ones. Until now. We do this right, Rick said, voice sharpening. We don't get mad. We get smart. You sure about this? I'm sure they don't get to walk away from this untouched. We sat in silence again. The bourbon was nearly gone, but neither of us cared. The world had shifted on its axis. Everything familiar was suddenly wrong-shaped. Eventually, Rick stood. I'm heading out, he said. You good? I nodded. I will be. He clapped a hand on my shoulder and held it there, eyes locking with mine. I got your back, brother. Same. Then he walked off into the night, leaving me alone on the patio with nothing but the shadows and my thoughts. The next morning, the house was quiet. Brandon had gone for a run. Vanessa was already in the kitchen, humming as she made coffee, like she hadn't been moaning my best friend's son's name 2 nights ago in the same house where we shared vows. Morning, she said, smiling faintly. I stared at her. She was in that soft white robe again, the one I bought her for our 10th anniversary. Her hair was tied back, messy but sexy, like she'd just rolled out of someone else's bed. You sleep okay? She asked. I nodded. Yeah. She leaned over to grab a mug from the cabinet, and her robe slipped just enough to expose the curve of her ass. A few weeks ago, I might have walked over, slid a hand under it, kissed her neck, started something right there on the counter. Now, I just watched. A stranger in my own kitchen. She turned and caught me staring. Her cheeks pinked. You okay? Just thinking. About. Found an old file on the TV last night. Her eyes flickered. Barely. But I saw it. Oh, she said casually, reaching for her coffee. Yeah. Brandon must have left his phone synced to the system. Had some personal stuff on it. Vanessa took a sip. You didn't look, did you? I let the pause stretch. No. Course not. She exhaled, the tiniest relief softening her shoulders. Good. That'd be kind of an invasion. Yeah, an invasion. Right. She turned back to the fridge, her back to me again. I watched her, really watched her, and for the first time, I didn't feel confused, or scared, or broken. I felt sharp, focused. We were past the point of confrontation. This wasn't about begging for honesty or chasing apologies. This was about strategy. They didn't know we knew. And now? Now we had the power. That night, I sent Rick a message. They still think they're in the clear. Let's start planning. His reply came fast. Game on. It was Rick's idea to involve her. Brooke, Brandon's fiancée. They'd been together since junior year of college. One of those pretty, picture-perfect couples you see smiling in Instagram selfies with latte art and matching scarves. She lived out in Austin, finishing up her master's, but was flying in to visit Brandon for the weekend. He hadn't told her anything, of course. Why would he? Why ruin the illusion? Rick called me the morning her flight landed. She's here, he said. Wants to surprise Brandon. I laughed bitterly. He's going to be surprised, all right. We met her at Rick's place that afternoon. I hadn't seen Brooke since Brandon's graduation. Polite girl, sharp as hell, kind eyes, clean energy. She walked in, excited and glowing, until she saw our faces. Rick didn't waste time. Brooke, he said, we need to talk before you see Brandon. She froze, her smile fading. What's going on? I looked at Rick, unsure how to start. He nodded for me to go ahead. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder I had discreetly saved from the TV that night. I'd copied every video, every photo, every last text. I turned the screen to her. The moment she saw Vanessa's face on top of Brandon, eyes closed, mouth open, her knees nearly buckled. She dropped into a chair, hands shaking, staring at the screen like it had punched her in the gut. What the fuck is this? She whispered. Rick didn't sugarcoat it. That's my son, and that's his best friend's wife. No, she said, breathless. No, he wouldn't. She scrolled. One video, then another. A screenshot of a text from Vanessa. Can't stop thinking about last night. You made me feel like I haven't in years. I need you again soon. Brooke's hands were trembling so violently, I had to take the phone back. She sat silent for a long time. Face pale, jaw tight. Then, slowly, tears welled in her eyes. But she didn't break. She smirked. It was small, cold, and maybe a little terrifying. Oh, we're going to ruin them, she said, her voice shaking, but not from sadness. From rage. For 2 days, Brooke stayed at Rick's place, pretending to be out of town. Brandon texted her nonstop, asking when she'd land, what she was wearing, whether she'd brought the lingerie he liked. He was already planning to cheat on Vanessa with his own fiancée. That irony wasn't lost on any of us. Rick stared at his phone one night and said, You know, I used to worry that boy didn't get enough affection growing up. I raised an eyebrow. You regret being tough on him? He shook his head. No, I regret not being tougher. Brooke leaned back in the armchair across from us, legs tucked up under her. She was wearing one of Brandon's old college hoodies, and somehow that made it even more painful. She still smelled like him, still looked like someone who had loved him, until 2 days ago. This weekend, she said, I want to act like I know nothing. Let him think everything's normal. Rick nodded. That'll be hard. She smiled thinly. Not as hard as watching those videos. Her phone buzzed again. Brandon, can't wait to feel you again, baby. No one does it like you. I wanted to vomit. So did Rick. Brooke just stared at the message, then glanced up at us. You know what the worst part is? I believed him when he said we were solid. I believed we were heading toward marriage, kids, a life. I believed in her too, I said softly. 17 years. Thought I knew her better than anyone. Brooke's eyes softened, just for a moment. Guess we're both fools, she said. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The plan began to take shape that night. Brooke would act normal. Kiss Brandon like nothing had changed. Whisper all the sweet things he wanted to hear. Rick and I would stay distant but civil, supportive of their visit, giving them space. But in the background, we would start to shift the chessboard. Every move we made now would set up the final blow. Brooke had ideas too. Smart, savage ideas. You know what would really break him? She said. If I started flirting with you. I blinked. Wait with me. She shrugged. We've got to get in their heads. Let Vanessa see something. Let Brandon feel something. Make them question each other. Get paranoid. It'll accelerate the unraveling. Rick leaned forward, a gleam of wicked approval in his eye. That's a dangerous game. Brooke smirked. So is fucking your best friend's wife. The next evening, we all played our parts. Brooke showed up at my house like a loving fiancé, arms around Brandon's neck, her mouth on his in the doorway. Vanessa stood in the kitchen, watching. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to them. She smiled too hard, too long. I could almost feel the tension start to form. We sat around the table, shared dinner like everything was normal. Brandon told dumb jokes. Brooke laughed too loud. Vanessa touched my arm for the first time in weeks, some fake, casual gesture meant to remind me I was hers. Too late. Later, Brooke and I ended up sitting outside together on the patio. I lit a fire in the pit, poured us a whiskey each. Brandon was inside with Vanessa, doing the dishes. I heard them laughing. Brooke moved closer to me on the bench. Her thigh brushed mine. She whispered, he's watching. I looked through the window. Brandon stood at the sink, frozen, eyes on us. Vanessa stood beside him, her arms crossed. You sure about this? I asked Brooke quietly. She smiled, slow and calculated. We're just sitting here. What's he gonna say? That his fiancée and his mentor shared a drink. Technically, I'm not his mentor anymore. Even better. She leaned in, brushing my arm with hers again. Besides, she added, this is just foreplay. I looked at her then, really looked. And something shifted in me. This wasn't just a woman hurt. This was a woman ready to burn down the entire house. And I was starting to feel the heat. Everything about revenge is supposed to be calculated, planned, measured, controlled. But no one talks about what happens when the people executing the plan start feeling more than they're supposed to. Because that's exactly what was happening between me and Brooke. At first, it was just part of the strategy. A little hand on the shoulder. A shared smirk. A whisper exchanged just close enough for Brandon or Vanessa to catch out of the corner of their eye. But then it started to change. Her touches lingered a little longer. My eyes started to follow her when she left a room, not because I wanted Vanessa to notice, but because I couldn't help it. She smelled like citrus and cinnamon. She wore my old hoodie around the house one night and didn't give it back. She started curling up on the couch next to me, barefoot and beautiful, acting like we'd been doing it for years. And somewhere in the middle of pretending, it stopped feeling like a game. But I kept my mouth shut, because the trap wasn't fully sprung. Not yet. The next move came from Rick. He started warming up to Brandon again, pretending he was coming around, accepting their living situation, even giving Vanessa a hug when she brought over lemon bars one night. You're such a good woman, Rick told her, loud enough for Brandon to hear. Don't know how you put up with all of us. Vanessa laughed, brushing hair from her cheek. She leaned into Rick's touch just a little too much. She was trying to play innocent. I wanted to grab her right there and whisper, you're not even good at lying anymore. But I didn't. Not yet. Rick and I had a role to play. He started encouraging time between me and Brooke, little nudges that seemed natural. Why don't you two go out tonight? Me and Brandon will hang back, grill some burgers. Take her downtown, man. You both need to unwind. Brandon always smiled and nodded, but I saw the twitch in his jaw every time Rick suggested I take his fiancée somewhere alone. Vanessa pretended not to care. But one night, I walked into the living room and found her holding Brooke's phone, browsing through pictures. She looked up, startled. Oh, sorry. I was just looking for the playlist she was playing earlier. Sure you were. A few nights later, Rick cooked dinner at my place. All of us were there, me, Brooke, Brandon, Vanessa. The table buzzed with fake laughs and subtle tension. I caught Vanessa glancing at Brooke when she reached for the wine bottle between us. Brooke's hand brushed mine, just barely. Vanessa noticed. Brandon's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Brooke didn't pull away. She smiled at me, this soft, coy smile that said everything and nothing at the same time. Later that night, Brooke helped me with the dishes. She stood beside me at the sink, quiet at first, then said softly, you know I meant it, right? Meant what? She looked up at me, eyes clear. It's not just about payback anymore. My heart kicked hard against my ribs. Are you sure? I asked, voice low. Are you? I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that I hadn't felt like this in years. Not with Vanessa. Not with anyone. That night, as Brooke got ready for bed in the guest room, I passed by her open door and caught a glimpse of her standing in nothing but one of my old t-shirts. No bra. No shorts. Just bare legs and soft skin. She saw me watching. She didn't close the door. She just smiled. The next day, I told Rick the final piece was in place. Vanessa's getting suspicious, I said. And Brandon? He's starting to act jealous. Rick grinned. Perfect. Let them rot in it. We set the countdown in motion. 1 week from now, Brandon and Brooke's surprise engagement party. One they didn't know we were throwing. Hosted at Rick's house. Friends. Family. Even coworkers. A slideshow. Music. And a flash drive filled with all the evidence. Screenshots, videos, voice memos, even some raunchy texts Brandon sent while lying next to Brooke. You think she'll show? I asked. Vanessa. He nodded. She'll show, I said. She won't be able to help herself. She'll want to see if Brandon still chooses her, even in public. Good, Rick said. Then we'll bury them together. That night, after another long day of playing the happy, oblivious host, I found Brooke on the back porch. She was curled up in one of the chairs, barefoot, a blanket over her legs, sipping a glass of red wine. She looked over at me and smiled. Hey, she said softly. I sat beside her. For a long while, we didn't talk. Just watched the stars blink overhead, listening to the crickets hum in the distance. Then she turned to me. You ever wonder how this all ends? Every minute. And I took a sip of my drink. I think we come out clean. I think we burn the liars. And then, she asked. I don't know. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I do, she whispered. I think we walk out of this house together. And we don't look back. Her hand found mine under the blanket. Warm. Soft. Real. And in that moment, the revenge didn't matter. The lies didn't matter. Only the fire building between us and the storm about to break. It started with a kiss. Not a planned kiss. Not a part of the game. Not one of those teasing, calculated glances we'd exchanged across rooms to make Brandon or Vanessa squirm. This one was different. It happened late on a Friday night, the house still and warm after hours of pretending. Brooke and I were cleaning up after dinner, just the two of us. Brandon had gone out with some friends. Vanessa had faked a migraine and went to bed early, though I knew damn well she was probably texting him under our own roof. Brooke stood at the sink, barefoot again, wearing that soft gray tee I'd given her. The one that hung just off one shoulder and barely skimmed the tops of her thighs. Her hair was up, a few tendrils loose around her neck. Her skin glowed in the amber light of the kitchen. I passed behind her to toss something in the trash, and my hand brushed her back. Light. Accidental. Or maybe not. She turned to face me, suddenly too close. Our eyes locked. Neither of us said a word. And then, she kissed me. Her lips found mine with heat, urgency, truth. I responded before I even had time to think, my hand sliding to her waist, her body pressing flush against mine. The taste of red wine on her tongue, the soft moan in the back of her throat, it all crashed into me like a wave I hadn't realized I'd been dying to drown in. We broke apart just long enough to breathe. Her eyes were wide, her chest rising and falling fast. That wasn't part of the plan, she whispered. I know, but I don't want to stop. Neither did I. We didn't make it to the bedroom. Right there, on the couch, where Brandon had once sat bragging about her curves, I undressed her slowly, reverently. Her skin was warm, flushed, trembling under my hands. She gasped when I kissed her neck, her nails digging into my shoulders as I pulled her onto my lap. The way she moved, hungry, wild, almost feral, it wasn't about getting even anymore. This wasn't performance. This was possession. Connection. Us. She rode me like she was claiming something. And I let her. We didn't speak when it was over. Just lay tangled together in the dim light, her body soft and exhausted against mine, our chest rising in unison. Somewhere in the house, Vanessa's bedroom light clicked off. Maybe she thought she'd won. Maybe she still believed she was in control. But she had no idea that, while she played in the dark with a boy, I had a woman moaning my name just one room away. The next morning, Brooke was back in her fiancé role, bright smile, perky kisses, clinging to Brandon's arm in a way that made him visibly squirm. I caught Vanessa watching her with narrowed eyes, like she couldn't figure out why Brooke was suddenly glowing. She'd see soon enough. Brandon pulled me aside after breakfast. Hey, man, can I ask you something? Sure, I said, sipping coffee. You and Brooke, you seem close. I raised an eyebrow. She's practically family. She's at my house half the time. I know, he said quickly, waving it off. She said you've been helping her with something? Yeah, planning a little surprise for someone. He stiffened. A surprise. You'll see. That same twitch in his jaw returned. I patted him on the shoulder and left him stewing in it. Across the room, Vanessa studied the two of us like a hawk watching a slow, inevitable car crash. Good. Let her wonder. Let them both wonder. That night, Vanessa came into our bedroom wearing the same silk robe from the photos. She leaned in the doorway, lips parted, trying for sultry, but all I saw was calculation. She crossed the room and sat beside me on the edge of the bed. I feel like we've been disconnected, she said, running a hand up my thigh. I flinched slightly, but forced a neutral expression. Have we? Her fingers traced slow circles over my leg. I miss us. Bullshit. You've been distant, she added softly, pressing her body against mine. Cold. I looked her straight in the eye. Just tired, I guess. She leaned in to kiss me, but I turned my head. The kiss landed awkwardly on my cheek. She pulled back, a flicker of something in her eyes. Confusion? Guilt? Realization? You're not, she started, then stopped. Not what? Never mind, she said, standing. Maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe you stopped wanting me. I said nothing. Let her sit in it. She left the room without another word. I waited 5 minutes. Then I slipped out, walked barefoot to the guest room, and slipped under the covers with Brooke. She curled into me like we'd been doing it for years. Did she trot? Brooke whispered. I nodded. Yeah. And I didn't let her. She smiled against my chest. Good. By the time Sunday rolled around, the storm clouds had fully gathered. Brandon had grown possessive. I caught him watching Brooke when she laughed at my jokes, his hand tightening on her waist when she leaned a little too close. Vanessa tried to play it cool, but she was unraveling. Her touches with Brandon grew clumsy, her smiles tighter. She caught me watching them once and held Brandon's hand like a threat. But it was too late. The noose was already around both their necks. They just hadn't felt it tighten yet. Rick had booked the venue for the engagement party. His contacts were sending out the invites under the guise of a surprise celebration. Brooke sent out one of her own, to a very special recipient. Brandon, surprise engagement party next weekend. Hope you're ready to be celebrated, babe. He replied with, can't wait. Poor bastard. He had no idea what was waiting for him behind that curtain. And the best part? He wouldn't be the only one walking into the spotlight naked. Rick waited until the house was empty. Vanessa had taken Brooke and Brandon out for brunch, a suggestion she made just a little too eagerly that morning. Her voice had that sugar-slick tone, the one she used when she was overcompensating. We should do something fun. Just us, she chirped, looping her arm through Brandon's and casting a sideways glance at Brooke. Brooke just smiled and played along, slipping her hand into Brandon's like she didn't already have screenshots of him telling Vanessa she was more addictive than oxygen. They left around 10:30. At 10:35, Rick pulled into my driveway. He didn't say hello, just got out of his truck, eyes hard, jaw set like stone. He looked like a man going to war, not with fists, but with final words. You ready? He asked me, not looking away from the front door. I nodded. You sure you want to do this today? Rick gave a humorless laugh. I've waited long enough. Besides, after next weekend, there'll be nothing left to say. This is for me. I didn't follow him inside. This was something he needed to do alone. The air inside the house was still warm from their departure. The faint scent of Vanessa's perfume lingered in the foyer, amber and sin. Rick paced the living room for a minute before sitting down in the same chair Brandon had lounged in so many times before. The one where he'd smirked, stretched, and acted like he owned the place. Rick waited, and when they returned 2 hours later, laughing like nothing was broken, he was sitting there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Brandon was the first to see him. Dad, what are you doing here? Rick stood up slowly. Sit down, Brandon. Brooke went pale. Vanessa froze. Brandon blinked. Wait, what's going on? Sit down. Brandon obeyed, sinking into the same couch cushion he'd defiled with my wife. He looked confused, but not scared. Not yet. Rick didn't sit. He just stared at his son. I know, he said flatly. Brandon frowned. Know what? I know about you and Vanessa. Vanessa inhaled sharply. Brandon looked stunned. His whole body stiffened. Dad, what are you? Don't, Rick interrupted. Don't insult my intelligence. We found the folder. The pictures. The videos. The texts. Brooke stood to the side, arms crossed over her chest, silent but present. Watching. Brandon looked at her, then back at Rick. His face fell. You've been spying on me? Rick stepped forward slowly. You filmed yourself fucking my best friend's wife, in his house, while he was downstairs. Then sync your phone to the living room TV. You exposed yourself, son. All we did was press play. Brandon's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Dad, it wasn't like that. It started before I even moved in. She came onto me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Rick's voice dropped to a deadly calm. Don't you dare try to put this on her. But it's the truth. Brandon pleaded. She told me their marriage was dead, that she just needed to feel something again. And I didn't plan it. I swear. But it got out of control. And you didn't think, Rick said, his voice hard now, that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just some fling? That maybe betraying me, the man who raised you, wasn't the best way to figure out your sex life. Brandon's face was red now. Defensive. I didn't mean to betray you. You betrayed everyone who ever cared about you, Rick snapped. You betrayed me. You betrayed Brooke. You betrayed your friend. You disrespected this entire family. Brandon's jaw tightened. It wasn't love. It was just sex. I didn't even want it to become anything more. Brooke let out a sharp, bitter laugh. That's supposed to make it better? He looked at her like she'd just stabbed him. Brooke, wait. You knew. She nodded slowly. I've known for a week now. You've been sleeping in my bed, holding my hand. Pretending, she cut in. Just like you. He stood up. This is insane. You're all acting like I'm some monster. Vanessa's just as guilty. I'll deal with her, Rick said coldly. But you? You're my son. Brandon tried to soften. Dad, look. I know I messed up, but I'm still your kid. We can work through this. I'll stop seeing her. I'll make things right. Rick shook his head. Once. Final. You're not my son, he said, his voice like stone. Not anymore. Brandon's mouth dropped open. Rick stepped closer. I raised you to be a man of honor, of character. You smiled in my face while you tore down the people I love. You slept with the woman married to the man who welcomed you into his home. You filmed it. You bragged about it. I didn't brag. You labeled the folder with her goddamn initial, Rick roared. Brandon fell silent. The only sound in the room was Brooke's slow, angry breathing. Rick stared at him for another long moment. Then he said, very calmly, You don't come to the party next weekend. You don't call me. You don't speak to Brooke. You don't speak to him, he said, gesturing toward the hallway where I was standing, out of sight. And if you so much as step near Vanessa again, I promise you, this quiet confrontation will be the nicest part of your week. Then he turned to Vanessa. I'll deal with you later. And just like that, Rick walked out. Brandon sat there, stunned, for a full minute before his hands started to shake. Vanessa tried to speak. We can fix this. We just... Brooke stepped forward. No, she said. You don't get to talk. And then she followed Rick out the door. Outside, Rick was waiting by his truck. You good? I asked him. He nodded. I'm better than I've been in weeks. And Brandon? Rick looked at me. Eyes distant but clear. Let him sit in it. The worst part is knowing the fallout hasn't even started yet. Nope, I said. That starts next weekend. We stood there for a moment, not talking, just listening to the wind move through the trees. Then Rick looked at me. We're gonna finish this, he said. And when we do, I want to be looking right at them when it all comes down. You will. And so will I. The invitations had gone out a week earlier, handwritten cards, gold trim, elegant as hell. Brooke's idea, of course. Go classy, she'd said. They won't suspect a thing. They didn't. The official reason? A surprise engagement party for Brandon and Brooke, hosted by Rick, the ever-proud father. Vanessa helped coordinate the guest list, her own little show of support for her secret lover and his beautiful, oblivious fiancé. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. We rented a private event space downtown, exposed brick walls, string lights, a full bar. It was the kind of place people throw dream weddings and Pinterest-worthy receptions. The kind of place Vanessa used to fantasize about when we were younger, before we lost each other somewhere between routine and betrayal. The decorations were perfect. Champagne flutes lined the tables. White roses. Silver accents. Music low and romantic. Everyone dressed to the nines. It looked like a celebration. It was a funeral. Brandon showed up first, smug, handsome, still thinking he had two women wrapped around his fingers. He wore a crisp navy suit, no tie, top button open. That faux casual look he thought made him irresistible. Vanessa arrived soon after, in a black cocktail dress that clung like it wanted to be peeled off. She kissed my cheek when she saw me. You look amazing, she whispered, running her fingers along my collar. I gave her a smile. Cool. Distant. The kind of smile you wear when you're about to deliver a eulogy. Then Brooke entered. And the room turned. She wore red. A deep, blood wine red dress, lips painted to match, her hair up, skin glowing. She looked like every man's fantasy and every woman's threat. She walked in like she owned the world, and for the next hour, she did. Brandon's eyes lit up. He kissed her, hands lingering at her waist. Vanessa stiffened. I saw it. That twitch in her jaw. That look in her eyes when she realized the woman Brandon had been planning to throw away, now glowed like a goddess under the lights. They mingled, laughed, toasted. Brandon soaked in the attention like the smug little bastard he was. Vanessa stayed close to him. Too close. Like a dog guarding a bone. And then Rick raised his glass. Can I have everyone's attention? He said, his voice booming over the soft music. The chatter quieted. Phones lifted. Cameras ready. I just want to say a few words about love. About commitment. About honor. Brandon smiled, arm around Brooke. Vanessa beamed beside him. And I watched from the back, hand resting on the laptop in the AV booth. Rick continued. My son has always been charming, clever, passionate. But what defines a man isn't how loud he laughs or how big he dreams. It's how he treats the people who trust him. A pause. He looked at Brandon. At the heart of every relationship is trust. And when that's broken, well, sometimes there's only one way to show people the truth. The lights dimmed. Brandon blinked. What's going on? The projector clicked on, and the screen lit up. At first, soft music. A romantic montage. Photos of Brandon and Brooke, college formals, vacations, smiles. The kind of cheesy slideshow you see at a rehearsal dinner. People clapped. Some wiped tears. And then, the music cut. And the real slideshow began. The first photo, Brandon in my guest room. Shirtless. Vanessa straddling him. Both of them laughing. Gasps. Silence. Then a video. Vanessa on her knees. Brandon behind her. Her mouth forming words no one ever expects to hear from a married woman in another man's bed. The room froze. Someone dropped a glass. Then another video. This time, Vanessa's voice. He has no idea. We were doing it while he was watching the game downstairs. Murmurs exploded into chaos. Brandon leapt to his feet. Turn it off. Turn it the fuck off. But it was too late. The damage was done. Vanessa stood there in stunned silence, her face pale, lips trembling. She looked around the room, at friends, family, her friends, some with their mouths open, others with phones raised. Brooke stepped forward. She walked to Brandon slowly, calmly, and when she reached him, she slapped him. Hard. Then she leaned in and whispered, "Now you know how it feels." And she turned, walked straight across the floor, and came to me. She took my hand. Everyone watched. Everyone saw. Vanessa's eyes went wide. No, 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 she muttered, stumbling forward. You can't be serious. You too. Surprised. I asked her, smiling coolly. This was all a game? No, Vanessa. You made it a game. We just changed the rules. Brandon stood there, shattered, humiliated, surrounded by the wreckage of his own choices. Vanessa reached for me, her voice cracking. Please. I didn't want this. I made a mistake. You don't have to throw everything away over this. I pulled Brooke close. You already did. Rick raised his glass one last time. To truth, he said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. And we left. Just walked out. Left them with their lies, their shame, in a room full of witnesses. Because some betrayals deserve privacy. But others deserve an audience. The fallout was exactly what we wanted. Worse, actually. Brandon tried to spin it afterward. Claimed the video was fake at first. Said we doctored it. That the angles were misleading. But when his own fiancé publicly dumped him and his own father cut him out of the will, that story didn't stick. He tried reaching out to Rick. Sent a long email full of half apologies and self-pity. Rick never replied. I didn't either. And Vanessa? She showed up at my doorstep 3 days after the party. She didn't knock at first. Just stood there, staring at the door like it held some answer she wasn't ready to face. When she finally raised her hand and rang the bell, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. She looked different. Not like the woman who'd once tried to seduce me in the kitchen. Not like the girl who used to hum as she folded laundry. She looked like someone lost in her own home. No makeup, hair pulled back, hands twisting nervously at her sides. Honey, she started. No. She blinked. I'm not honey anymore, I said. She swallowed hard. Can we talk? I don't think that would be helpful. I made a mistake, she said, voice shaking. I don't even know why I let it go that far. I wasn't thinking. I didn't feel seen. I thought, he made me feel young again. I laughed short and bitter. He made you feel wanted. And you threw away everything real for a cheap thrill and a few filtered selfies. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. I nodded slowly. But you did. She looked down, tears welling in her eyes. Can we fix it? I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, not letting her in. You had a man who would have died for you, I said. You had a home, a life, and you gave it away for sweaty lies in my guest room. It didn't mean anything, she sobbed. That's exactly the problem. And then I walked past her, down the steps, into the car waiting by the curb. Brooke was in the passenger seat. She didn't ask what Vanessa said. She didn't need to. I didn't look back. Brandon tried texting Brooke the next day. Please. I'm a mess. I don't know what I was thinking. You meant everything to me. You still do. She replied with a photo. Not a nude. Not revenge. It was us, me and her, at a vineyard the day before. Laughing. Glasses clinking. Her hand on my chest, my lips brushing her temple. The caption just read, I know what I mean to someone now. He didn't message again. Time passed. Not all at once. but in small, steady steps. Rick and I stayed close. Closer, actually. That kind of betrayal either destroys a friendship or forges it in iron. We chose the latter. We'd meet up every Friday now. Same backyard. Same grill. Same beers. But everything was different. He smiled more now. Laughed easier. Like a man who dropped a weight he didn't even know he'd been carrying. Hell of a ride, he said one night, clinking his bottle to mine. Yeah, I nodded. But I wouldn't change it. Brooke moved in a few months later. We didn't rush it. We didn't call it fate. We just let it happen. We'd stay up late sometimes, not talking. Just holding each other. The quiet kind of intimacy that doesn't need to prove itself. No performances. No lies. Just truth. Raw and simple. One morning, I woke up, and she was looking at me, eyes soft, barefaced, hair a mess. And she said, "You know, I don't need a ring to feel married to you." I smiled. Me either. But a few weeks later, I gave her one anyway. No crowds. No fanfare. No slideshow. Just us, standing on a rocky cliff, waves crashing below, wind tangling her hair. And this time, I meant every word. Vanessa never remarried. She moved in with her sister for a while, then got an apartment 2 towns over. I heard through a mutual friend that she tried dating again, but the moment she mentioned how her last marriage ended, most men bailed. Actions have consequences. Brandon lost his job. Word got around. One of the videos had leaked. He went radio silent on social media. Last I heard, he moved back in with his mom out of state. Rick never spoke to him again. And me? I sleep well now. I don't wonder what's going on behind closed doors. I don't walk into rooms scanning for clues. I don't question whether the love I feel is real or a performance. Because I see it. Every morning. In the way Brooke smiles when she brings me coffee in bed. In the way she laughs when I tickle her knees. In the way she never flinches, never hides, never lies. We're not just happy. We're free.